Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of Stitt with Stitt, a new series where I'll take on a controversial, taboo, or otherwise important topic and contend with it for the internet. This week's topic is relationships. There are a couple reasons for that. It's been a theme in my work of late, and a theme just for our species, that the nature of relationships and the way we do those is changing. And what I see is a lot of people are getting married later in life. There are obviously the divorce rate's gone way up. There's a lot more people who are resistant to having a kind of monogamous partnership, and they're like, well, what's really in it for me other than, the forthcoming divorce and trying to navigate all the yada, yada, yada. Ultimately, I'll start with the kind of first point. Everything begins with your relationship to yourself. That's chapter 3, I think, in the book. Chapter 4 is about your relationship with everything else. So in Equilibrium, I basically contend that in order to be properly oriented in the world, you should align first with the God of your highest understanding, whether or not that is personified or just a set of ideas that set your standards of character. So orient first with God, then with yourself, and then with all that is external. The primary mistake I see people making constantly is trying to use external relationships to manage their internal condition. And they say things like, well, I'll be okay because this person will, or I'll be okay because I have this person. I call those safety nets. Very often, when you're using a safety net to be okay, the safety net fails. So I think a foundational belief of mine is that we should all achieve personal equilibrium first, and only then use other relationships to kind of enrich our life experience. So if your relationship to yourself is not safe, you will never feel safe. That's a direct quote from Equilibrium, and I think it's an important line. Don't expect anyone else to make you feel emotionally safe. That's your job as an adult. If you're a kid, those circumstances are a lot different because you can't always control your environment. But as an adult, you can control your environment. The second point I wanted to make about your relationship with yourself is regarding, it comes from Jungian psychology, regarding the anima and animus. There is some conception everyone has of what a woman is or should be and what a man is or should be. This conception comes from your early relationships with your grandparents, your parents, brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, maybe even your early romantic relationships. These all the data from that goes into the unconscious, and if you process it, then you can understand more about your conception. But most people don't, and it's just this sort of ambiguous bubble in their brains of like, this is how I would like to be treated by my partner based on my understanding of how these sort of archetypes act and move in the world. It is important that, as the old texts say, to be equally yoked. Find a partner that has a similar conception. Like if you have this important conception of what a woman should be in your life, well, you probably should find a woman who believes in that conception. If you find a partner who does not agree with your conception of what a woman should be or a man should be or what have you, well, then there's going to be a lot more contention in the relationship. So Jungian psychology is the most practical psychology and useful, executable intelligence from the psychology field that I've found so far. So definitely recommend looking into that more. Regarding external relationships, the first point that I wanted to make, again, this is all in chapter 4 if you want to hear more about it, but obligatory relationships are not relationships. That is a delusion. Like, if you're always chasing and the people that you're desiring to be with kind of just treat you like you're taken for granted or like you're just there, or, okay, I'll participate in our relationship in some fashion, that's fake. You are already alone, so don't kid yourself that you're not alone. Just see the truth. I'm the only one putting anything into this relationship. I need to find people that also want to feed into me, that reciprocate. In order to have the best external relationships, you should acknowledge first your sovereignty. Remember, everything goes back to your relationship with yourself. and then acknowledge the sovereignty of others. By acknowledging yours, you also must acknowledge the sovereignty of others. So the moment anyone in my life, no matter how much I love them, says, I don't want to be in relationship with you anymore, I'm not fighting to keep that relationship. I'm not, I'll do anything, I'll change, I'll blah, blah, blah. No, they're a sovereign human. I know who I am because I've done the work to know who I am. You know, I have looked into whether or not I might be neurodivergent, or whether or not maybe my partner is neurodivergent, or what my personality types are. I've looked into Enneagram and Myers-Briggs, and I've processed my trauma, so I know who I am. And I'm not going to change that for someone else. That's having a solid foundation. That's why it has to begin with yourself. So once you acknowledge your sovereignty, when someone says they want to let go, you have to let go too. And you cannot try to pull someone back in who's trying to get away from you and maintain any shred of respect for yourself. So when someone says I'm done, just let them go. Second point, accommodate behaviors, not behavior patterns. This is a big one lately. What I think people should understand is that if you're going to have long-term partnership, you will in some form or fashion have to navigate one another's core wounds together. You're not going to live with someone around the clock 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. You're not going to be a Meemaw and Peepaw together and never see your partner triggered or pissed off or broken. Like, you will see their core wounds. And that's a huge reason that I think there's a lot more divorce. Not only culturally is it more acceptable, but people aren't contending with their own inner core wounds, and therefore they are not prepared in any way to contend with their partner's core wounds, because now you have my triggers are triggering my partner, and my partner's triggers are triggering me, and it's just this big explosion. So people have to be able to have a bad day. They have to be able to have a bad season. Sometimes we even have a couple of bad years, you know, and I think you have to be, to the third point, you always have to use your inner voice. I don't try to control my partner. I don't say, you're doing this and I want you to do this or this. What I say is, hey, just so you know, this is my stance on this. This is the trajectory I see. I'm concerned about this, and this is what I believe. I communicate truthfully. I try to do that compassionately, and I let people have a bad day. Accommodate behaviors, not behavior patterns, and always use your inner voice. My third point for this talk is you don't ever need anyone else's approval to be yourself. Like, you have to live in your uniqueness. You have to live in accordance with the inner voice, or else you're living in a delusion. It is very difficult to have honest relationships when you're living in a state of delusion. So that's why it's so important to align with your ideas first, and then yourself, and then all that is external. And I'll say that 36 times. I don't care, because people aren't doing it. I didn't do it for a long time. And when you're disoriented in the world and all you know is what people expect of you, or how our culture says things are to be done, it's very difficult to remember the old ways where children were taught traditions about what was believed, and all the information in the world was not available on the internet. Back then it was easier. First they taught them about God and how they were here, and then they learned about themselves and what their unique talents were and their place in the tribe, and then they kind of took on that role in the tribe and built their relationships. It's a lot harder to figure that out with the internet, and so I hope that my repeating it will have helped someone. But don't put your partner in a box. Every time I have a couple come in here, it's always because one person feels like they're in a box. You cannot control your partner. You communicate with them. You lead them by leading yourself. By adopting an attitude of self-leadership, I encourage everyone else in my household and in my tribe to do the same. I'm not controlling anybody. It doesn't work like that. Pick a fight when you need to. This is very important. If you're in a relationship where you can't pick a fight because you're nervous that they're going to leave you, again, you're not in a relationship. Obligatory relationships aren't relationships. If you're in a relationship where you have to do and act exactly how they say, that's not a relationship. So pick a fight. And Finally, move away from what hurts you. Again, you're allowing people to have a bad day, but if they are consistently disrespecting your values, showing you that you're not a priority, putting you below everything else in their life while you prioritize them, you already don't have a relationship. So, and recognize that you already don't want a relationship like that. We project onto people. We say, oh, but this is so close to what I want, or if I could just only have this thing. Well, if the person that you're with is not treating you like that, then you either have to have a hard adult conversation or distance from them. That's how it works. I think it's really weird that people don't casually date anymore. Like, I'm 32 years old, and when I was growing up, it was perfectly acceptable to have dinner with someone on Monday and have dinner with somebody else on Friday. Like, if this is the first date or something like that. Now it's like people go straight to the app. The first time they meet in person, it's like, we need to be committed, and that's because people are uncomfortable being alone. Take someone to dinner. Take them to a movie. Have a conversation. You don't have to get married on day 2. Like, slow down a little bit and be casual. Just have some fun if you're young and single. Like, just experience the world a little bit. Experience people. See what kind of people are out there, and use that to kind of get your anima and animos, your understanding of each of those, to be a little more healthy. Another thing that kind of drives me insane about relationships is that people feel like when they go through a breakup, it has to be violent or it has to be some sort of a spectacle. That is not the case. You can literally just say to your partner, thank you so much for being in this period of my life. You enriched it so much, and I learned so much from you, and I hope that you have a happy rest of your life. I'm sorry we're not headed in the same direction. So don't feel like you have to fight your way out of a relationship. Just express gratitude and move on. That's it. And then one kind of final point that I wanted to make was, just like in your relationship with yourself, there was a time in my life when I was pretty sick, and I told myself I'm never going to go out on a bad day. So on the bad days, it's like, well, there's no options. If I go out, I'm going out on a good day, period. Do that in relationships too. Like, sleep on it, you know? People are so quick to project not only their expectations, but also all of their traumas and stuff like that onto their partners. So you don't always have to be reactive. And our culture is a very reactive culture where we feel like we're playing bumper cars half the time. Whatever comes up, that's what we contend with. We can be beyond that. We can just take in information and let it settle and integrate. Doing nothing is a course of action. Like, even in the military intelligence community, sometimes you just wait for more information. So I do this thing I call the soft check, where, okay, I've accommodated the behavior. I've let someone have a bad day. The behavior happens again. And then I'll just either embody and hold in my chest, hey, don't do that a third time. And you'd be surprised how receptive of that people are. You don't even have to do anything except just know in your heart, like, okay, if this happens again, I have to do something about it. Or you can just have hey, can you not refer to me that way? It makes me feel uncomfortable, or something like that. You just that's the soft check. It's like this isn't really a problem for me, and I understand you're going through some stuff, but if this trajectory continues, I'm going to have a problem with that. So the whole point of equilibrium is that for 20 years of my life, I was depressed, suicidal, didn't know which way was up, trying to figure out what truth was, etc. And I managed to sort out, okay, first I need to answer my big questions. This is just my brain and how it works. First, I need to define what God is and why I'm here and what the purpose of this is, and like, what? That's step 1. Step 2 is, okay, who am I? Like, in what areas am I overcompensating? In what areas have I been too hard on myself? Why am I suffering if I'm suffering? And you start to sort of ask those questions, and you go back through the story of your life, and you begin to really understand who you are. Do some research, take a personality psychology course, or study Enneagram, do the Myers-Briggs, take an IQ test, like read some books about people and what makes them tick and what kind of a communicator you are. Come to our Enneagram class coming up. We host a lot of stuff for you to explore who you are and get in touch with the unconscious. Only after that are you now prepared to have healthy relationships where you're not projecting your shadow, being cruel to people, etc. So if you have any questions about relationship with yourself or with others, there are numerous chapters in the book about it. I highly encourage you to dig in, because no investment made into your own development is ever a waste. I really, really believe that. My education helped me a lot. The coaches I've worked with have helped me a lot. The therapists and pastors and reading I've done, all of those things make us better, stronger leaders, which make us better, stronger parents and partners. So this is just kind of a primer about relationships. I hope that you took something from it that was useful, and give us a like, share, a comment, any kind of feedback, because this is a large part of what we do here, is sharing experiences and educating folks on kind of themes that come up in human life. And your support of not only the writing but the online content as well supports the actual work we're doing with clients in the business. So thank you so much for your support, and we'll get another spicy episode up next week. If you ever want me to cover a topic on Sit with Stitt, just let me know. I'll talk about anything. I really don't care. In the groups, we talk about tools, vices, and addictions, sex and intimacy, anger and aggression, masculinity and femininity, God, faith, belief. We talk about the darkest door. We talk about the shadow, the mountaintop. So if any of those kind of call to you, let me know, and I'll cover the topic. And if not, I'll just keep doing every Monday whatever is kind of a theme in my life. And thanks for following along. See y'all soon.